Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Without Context podcast. I am Deca, joined by SharkyHat and AnxietyLasagna
He's
with
back.
the upside down L on her head. I just made that connection right now. That's great.
Did you not realize that Waluigi's symbol is an upside down backwards L?
No, it's AnxietyLasagna tonight. That's what it stands for today.
Lasagna.
Yeah.
It's L for lasagna.
Hell yeah. Let's go.
Me who's actively taking the L today.
Yeah, tell me about it. So today we are talking about the D&D movie. The D&D movie came out, like 3-ish weeks ago at this point? 4? Maybe a whole month?
March 31st, friends.
2 months.
Yeah, a little
What
bit
is time?
2 months ago. We're kind of late on this review, but we're waiting for everybody to see it first before we started talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that fits just the whole D&D planning thing where
Oh yeah.
it came out, but a few months later we finally have the session. So
Wasn't that the story of the D&D movie to begin with? Is like they were experiencing delays, and it was like, it is a D&D movie.
no, the D&D movie was the rogue didn't check for the traps, and it sets the whole plot off. But
I was gonna say, you're asking the wrong bitch.
yeah,
I was like, oh neat, a D&D movie, and then I went and saw it.
Yeah, and we're going to get into it, but what I liked most about this movie was the fact that I think anybody can go see it, not just D&D players.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this movie is just a good fantasy movie, just in a D&D eggshell. And it's like, you don't have to know a lot to appreciate this movie, I would say. Like, this movie is just a very fun, like, classic adventure movie. And it's a heist. Like, it's a heist movie at the core of it.
It's kind of like the reverse, like, I know I'm going to get shit here from, like, the Tolkien fans, but it's like the reverse of, like, Lord of the Rings, where, like, you can watch Lord of the Rings and get inspiration from, like, for your D&D game.
But then you watch this and it's like, this is my D&D game.
Yeah, exactly.
I really like this
You watch
movie.
Lord of the Rings and you're like, oh yeah, this is how my D&D gaming goes, and then you watch the D&D movie and it's like, nope, this is it.
Yeah, like I said, I like this movie. I like this movie a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I had doubts because I remember seeing the original one, and I was like, I just don't know if people can make a movie without it being overloaded with jokes. But something that I liked about this was it had comedy that wasn't like a Marvel movie comedy.
I gotta ask, when you say the original D&D movie,
Yes,
are you
the
talking about the
2000s
one
one.
with Vin Diesel?
No, the one with the fucking Wayans brother.
Oh, okay. I was like, there was one with Vin Diesel, and I cannot recall the name of it off the top of my head. I think it was
I'll look
D&D.
it up.
I have the Wikipedia page open.
Mm-hmm.
So there was D&D, and then there was
The Last Witch Hunter.
The Last Witch Hunter was not a D&D thing. They made it a D&D thing to promote the movie.
I
This
see.
forgotten action movie is about Vin Diesel's Dungeons and Dragons character. In The Last Witch Hunter, star of the Fast and Furious saga, finally shines a spotlight on his true love, his original D&D character, Calder.
If there's anything,
love that,
Vin
actually.
Diesel is nothing if not self-indulgent on his works.
That's definitely a good for him situation there. Like,
It's
good
like
for him.
It's like the Chronicles of Riddick movies. Like, that's just Vin Diesel being like, I love this character. I would play this character in a D&D game, so I'm going to make movies about him.
It's probably the same thing with, like, with his other properties, like the Fast and the Furious.
Yeah.
He just loves playing Dominic Toretto. Just keeps
We're
doing it.
way off topic, but there was a Twitter thread. What point did the Fast and Furious series like finally lose you? And it was the scene with Vin Diesel and Jason Statham like facing off against each other, and they both have contracts saying they cannot lose a fight in the series. So you have these two people who can't lose fights. Jason Statham stomps the street and it like collapses into the sewer to end the fight, so they don't have to get a definitive winner. And it's like, I dropped out of this movie when he became an earthbender. Like,
I've only ever seen Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. And the only thing I know about it is the vaguely racist theme song.
That's fair.
I watched Tokyo Drift in high school. That's how old I am.
Let's get back to D&D though.
You know what? That's also like a D&D thing.
It's F and F. We're going to go back to D&D.
I will say, I was immediately drawn into the film the second they dropped that an NPC character's name was Jarnathan.
I was about to say the bird, the practical
Jarnathan
effect,
Darnathan.
the practical effect Aarakocra named Jarnathan, who is this is a great entry point to a movie too. Just here's a little bit of exposition as I'm buying time, and then here's our clever escape using this pro roll board member that can fly.
My favorite thing about Jonathan, when you look him up, he's in the Forgotten Realms wiki. It's just a picture of Jonathan, like from the movie.
I would die for that bird. He's the coolest.
It was great. I was like, I loved the effects on the characters, just the practical Aarakocra, the practical Dragonborn, the practical Yuan-Ti. It was just fantastic.
There was a
How did we?
He's in one of the jail cells that goes past him.
How did I miss that?
Fake person.
Yeah.
How did we
I
feel?
know. I played Tomb of Annihilation. I am intimately aware of a Yuan-Ti.
How did we feel about, like, in general, the casting?
I think they were pretty well casted, and I think the writing really helps these characters a lot. It's not a long movie by any means, but we're given time with each of these characters to like really develop them, and it's not like, oh, their character is their jokes or personality. It's like, no, these are characters that actually have like a stake in this world. And I mean, the cast blew it away. I loved Chris as Edgin. I loved Michelle as Holga. Like, I love that duo not being forced as a love interest either. Like, they're just friends that are just there to help each other. And it was really cool seeing that dynamic, like, not squandered by trying to force like a love story or something.
I liked
them.
I like them too. But I like that when you Google Michelle Rodriguez D&D, it's like, has Michelle Rodriguez played D&D?
Yes, they did. The cast played a bunch of D&D behind the scenes when they were filming. So
that's actually pretty cool. I didn't know that.
The guy who plays Simon is a huge Dimension 20 fan.
Yeah,
apparently.
I did hear about that. That he watches
Justice
like the shows.
Smith.
Yep.
Yeah.
Justice Smith, Ryan Reynolds' son from Detective Pikachu. So
I need to see that movie.
Detective Pikachu is good. You'll like it.
I like that the barbarian stand-in was like not a grogs, muscly, big burly person. It was just, a really angry Latina.
The surrogate mother to, her friend's kid, like a very fleshed out barbarian too. You would expect this like, oh, barbarian characters have always had like this relatively simple backstory, but all these characters were very complex. To
be fair, that is like a knock against the D&D movie. All those backstories are way too good.
Yeah. Everybody put time into their backstory, and the DM fit it all into the campaign.
Yeah, exactly.
I like Sophia Loomis as Doric. I like the whole owlbear transformation. I know people were pissy about it for blah blah rules reasons, but
rules, immersion.
I think somebody pointed it out. There was the whole segment of just the back-to-back like wild shaping.
There was 7 because I counted them because I was like, not to be like, actually you can only wild. I was just like, that's a lot of wild shapes. Let's count, and I counted 7, which I was like, it was cool. Why would I be mad that they did a cool, fun thing in a cool, fun movie?
It's also realistic to that setting. Like, you're not going to be like, oh, I can only do this so many times. It's like, oh, I'm a druid. This is a thing that I can do, and I'm gonna just do it.
The way as me as a DM, the way I would start doing that is if I saw that my druid has like, oh, we'll use the example of like my druid likes to turn into an owlbear. Whatever rules, situation aside, like I would start flavoring like even regular attacks of like, oh yeah, you grow your owlbear claws for a second, you swipe at them.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna think too hard about it.
Rounding out the cast from our druid, our barbarian, our bard in Edgin, and our wild magic sorcerer in Simon, we have the friend turned enemy, and Hugh Grant playing a great villain in this movie.
Let's say, how did we feel about Hugh Grant as the heel?
I loved Hugh Grant. He was just
incredible.
He's such like, because he's not the main villain.
Shithead. He's such a shithead, and I loved it.
He's perfect because he's the kind of villain who thinks he's in charge, but he's not in charge. He's just that one who's getting all of the wealth and everything from it, but it's like, no, there's plans within plans, and things are going on. And then we get the other character.
I was gonna say, before we move on, we are going to have spoilers for this movie, so
Yeah, there's a bunch of spoilers here.
This is your spoiler warning before we finish getting through the cast. There
are a few more characters, but the one that stole the show, and I hate that he was only in this movie for a little while.
Bradley Cooper is the ex-husband.
That too. No,
I knew you were gonna do the guy from Bridgerton.
Yeah, I can't pronounce his name. Do you know how to pronounce the name?
Not off the top of my head. No,
if it is French, is it Rene? Is it like a weird way to spell Rene, like Rene Jean Paul or whatever, or Paul Jean, whatever his name is.
Okay, I'm clicking.
He's Simon from Bridgerton.
How to do it?
And he plays Zinc, who is a paladin. And he is the most paladin to ever paladin.
Roger Jean Page?
Roger Jean. Yeah, I'm not sure how you do the first part of his name.
I think it's Roger, thinking about it now.
Roger Jean Page.
He stole the fucking show for me. Like,
I loved when he walked over the top of the rock and just kept going.
There's a few of us here that may be on the spectrum, and we appreciated that moment because I also would not walk around that rock. I would go right over it.
If I was Zinc, I wouldn't walk around the rock.
He is definitely like, oh shit, one of my party members can't be here. Here's the DM character to help them like through the next part.
The DMPC classic.
And he's such a funny character too. Like, just him and Chris just play so well off of each other as these characters. I loved it. I loved that character. I loved the whole dynamic with him in the group.
Did we feel like? Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, I will say, like, as someone, like, I've played D&D pretty consistently since like 2018, and only like one and a half campaigns so far in like the Forgotten Realms, as far as I know. Like, I couldn't tell you if like Tomb of Annihilation or Curse of Strahd are technically Forgotten Realms or something. I still had a great time, even though they're like the red mages of whatever. I'm like, I don't know who the hell those people are, but I'm having a great time.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, there was definitely the part when spoilers towards the end, that Lich lady casts Finger of Death, and I whispered out like really loud. I was like, oh, that's Finger of Death. Like, I knew a little bit what was going on, but had no idea a lot of the Forgotten Realms lore, and still had a really fantastic time.
The Red Wizards of Thay aren't like, they haven't been used a whole heck of a lot in 5e. They were referenced a little bit in Tomb of Annihilation, actually.
They're in some of the adventures in Tales from the Yawning Portal.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, they're just like, they're not major antagonists yet. I'm sure we'll get to it eventually. Because if there's one thing that Wizards likes to do, it's recycle content.
Yeah, it was cool seeing Icewind Dale as like a setting, and the prison. The prison that I know makes an appearance in the adventure. So I was like, cool. We're actually getting like all the adventure stuff like put into these movies.
I like that they mentioned Waterdeep, because like I have a character that's in Waterdeep right now because we did Dragon Heist. Now we're doing Dungeon of the Mad Mage.
Yeah.
So they're like over in Waterdeep, and I was like, I've been there.
Yeah, so that gets us to our last main character here. Safina, who is a red wizard. That's kind of the
Lich bitch.
The Lich bitch who has plans behind Forge's back. And Oh god, probably has one of the most satisfying deaths in this whole fucking movie, if I'm being honest.
It did give me
It gave me Loki
the
vibes.
Hulk with Loki, yeah.
It really
I was like,
did.
I'm having a little bit of 2010 PTSD as a Loki stan over here.
But yeah, like the cast is great, and the story is just relatively simple too. It's a heist movie. It's we're gonna get out of jail, we're gonna get back to our family. Oh, I need to go get the thing to bring my dead wife back, and then the whole adventure is the friends we make along the way. And
as a D&D game should go.
And then it's okay, we're going to be big heroes and go back towards the death to save the city. And yeah, I mean, this movie flew by. Like, it was just fast. It was like, we're in Icewind Dale. We're back in Neverwinter. No, now we're over here in the Underdark, which was fucking insane to see in a movie. And in the Underdark, we get the Chunky Boy.
This is going to be an extremely unpopular opinion that's about to come out of my mouth.
All right, everyone brace yourselves.
I don't give a fuck about that fat dragon. I don't know why. Like, I'm sorry to my friend Ashley who went and saw this movie with me, who is like, love her to death. She's fucking obsessed with that dragon, and I'm just like, do you know the story of that dragon? And life's so sad.
Thembershad.
Yeah, there was like some like fucked up society under there that like uses red dragons to like power their tech. That dragon has never seen daylight and now is too fat to do so. And I'm like, the only thing I feel bad about for this, like, I feel bad for him. I'm not gonna sit there and be like, oh my gosh, what a sweet little chunky boy. I'm like, no, justice upon your oppressors. I know we're not supposed to like chromatic dragons, but
also the implication,
I don't get the appeal.
The implication that they blew that cave up and came out on the ocean means that they're flooding the Underdark and that dragon probably drowned. Like,
is there enough ocean to flood the entire Underdark?
No, but it's definitely probably going to lead to some ecological disaster somewhere down the line.
The ecological implications. That's my next Forgotten Realms campaign setting. The drought that comes from after the D&D movie.
Was it the ocean that they were in, or was it a lake?
I think it might have been a lake or something, but I know then they came out on the shoreline where we got the whole beach scene, and Zink walks over a rock because he's too good to go around it.
I loved how they handled attuning to a weapon, like attuning to something.
Yes, I really like that.
That was so fucking cool. Not just because I adore Simon. I didn't bring I have a Funko Pop of him. I broke my no buying Funko Pops rules to get a Simon Funko Pop. But I loved that sort of like, it can reject the attunement if you're not attuning to it right. And I was like, there are some people in my life who are going to use this against me at some point.
You're goddamn right.
And it's cool because the word of God is that the person he's talking to when attuning to that is his ancestor, ancestor Elminster, who Elminster is a very classic D&D character from the Forgotten Realms.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, cool. We're actually tying in like legendary characters from this setting into this game too.
Yeah, I guess Zast Tam is someone that I should have known too, but I was like, I'm sorry, I'm an Exandria girly, not whatever this official release nonsense is.
So Ed Greenwood is rolling in his grave, but
he's
still alive.
I don't know who that man is, but fuck him.
Ed Greenwood loved this movie. Like,
oh, that's great. Hey, good for him.
That's all the review I needed. Ed Greenwood loved it.
And some people are like, how do you feel like they're not using like your characters or anything? And it's like, bro, I made this world. There's more than like one set of characters in it. Like, they're using their own characters in my world in a movie. Like, what the fuck am I supposed to feel? This is awesome. Like, but he's like, I'm gonna see this multiple times. So
I will say I did want to see, as soon as the movie was over, I was like, I could watch this movie again immediately.
Yes.
Which I think is probably the highest form of praise you can give a movie, is as soon as you finished it, you wanted to watch it again.
I wanted to watch it again, and it's like, I think now it's on streaming finally, so we probably can.
But you have to pay money for it. It's not like you can't just have Prime and watch it.
That's fair.
I learned that the hard way.
They did say that this is part of what they want to kind of do with a shared universe. They want to make a show in the same vein as this, set in like the same universe as the movie, not like just a TV show set in Neverwinter, but the same Neverwinter as the movie. So it's like the TV show could be like, oh, we can reference the movie because it's the same general world, universe. And they wanted that to be their running plan with D&D now as an entertainment medium.
That's interesting. I have thoughts about that, especially if it's going to be straight movies. It's a show. It's a TV show. Okay, never mind. So my thoughts go like this. I think D&D shows or a D&D movie or anything based off the Forgotten Realms is better served as a movie than a streamed show or like a TV series.
Yeah. So Hasbro has been wanting to do like a D&D like movie or visual medium like entertainment for a long time. They said that a spin-off TV show is in development. It is going to be 8 episodes. It's going to be their quote-unquote flagship and cornerstone for the world. As like more movies come out, it'll be built off of the show.
They really saw Legends of Vox Machina.
I
want that.
D&D took the Marvel approach, and it's like, we're gonna make a show and then we're gonna make movies.
I don't like that, because then you have to have the other subscription service.
It's doing the Marvel and now Star Wars thing, where instead of being able to just go to the theater,
have to get I
gotta watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Loki and WandaVision and Andor and all this other stuff. And you can look back at a previous episode of Without Context for my thought on saturation of media markets, but just pick one. You don't have to do everything.
Make a movie series. Jesus Christ.
It's more, I feel like waiting is half the fun. But I guess in these times of instant gratification, you have to constantly be chugging out content.
All I'm going to say is
the youngest person here talking.
All I'm going to say is thank God Netflix didn't get the show, because it'd be canceled after one season. So,
yeah, for sure.
That's the thing. They put out whatever new I don't even know what the name is, because they put out a fantasy show. It got like rave reviews. It's like 85% on Rotten Tomatoes, and they're like canceled after one season.
Goodbye, bitch.
And I'm like, is Netflix just where you go now to just have your show?
And yet
killed?
We got a season 2 of Emily in Paris.
I don't know that show, but it affects Haley apparently.
multiple fucking. Well, no, I don't know what this series is. I genuinely don't know. I just hate Emily in Paris.
I don't know what it is.
All those kissing booth movies, like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah,
Netflix.
They got a lot of movies that were based on like young adult, like Wattpad novels. No, like not even that. Just is it Wattpad or Wattpad? I don't know.
No, I'm gasping because I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes, no, there are multiple.
Wattpad
the thing is,
there's so many.
Oh my god,
I could do an episode of the podcast just talking about fan fiction making the broach and like the like
I'm gonna say here,
not subtle breach into modern media and like the mainstream media and my thoughts on that.
Oh god.
I've been told that it's called Wattpad. But I'm seeing that word and I'm thinking Wattpad because I'm an electrician. So
if it makes you feel better, Sharky, I have only ever called it Wattpad because I can read.
I descend from engineers. I'm calling it Wattpad.
Wattpad. Okay.
Wattpad pronunciation. How to pronounce Wattpad? I'm googling it. Hold on, give me a second. Wattpad.
Wattpad. Yeah, there's a few movies that came off of that website that went to Netflix about things. But yeah, I hope that they do more movies with this cast in particular. I wouldn't mind new parties or new characters, but I think the chemistry between these 5 actors is just spot on. Like, it's rare. None
of them are particularly like gone, right? Like
Haley has thoughts.
This is okay. I know what you're all probably thinking. Haley, aren't you a huge fan of that romance subplot between the sorcerer and the druid? And I'm going to say no, because look at Doric. for exactly 1 second and tell me one thing about that about Doric that reads into guys. And you can't tell me anything that says that. That like look that she shares with that person she saves when she's introduced to the movie, I'm like, that is a woman who is into women, and they're gonna force the issue with someone else in this party, probably Simon, because like that was the most unrealistic part about this whole thing. Name one
Straight
gay
romance.
in the whole movie, and there's not one.
Haley,
They
you
had
cracked-
a fucking tiefling who wasn't gay. Are
Haley,
you
that's the
kidding
thing.
me?
You cracked the code. They're the tiefling. Like,
Yeah, they're the tiefling. They should have been gay. I love Simon. Adore Simon. Would die for Simon. Him and Doric. I'm just like, I could tell he was very into her. That's totally fine. The way she looked at him is the way I look at like dairy milk. I can't have dairy.
That's a soundbite for the shorts.
so you're right.
The way
yes.
that
The
the way
thing
that Doric looks at Simon is the way that I look at dairy milk. I'm lactose intolerant.
But see, they also did play it off like she's not really into him either, because at the end he's like excited. It's like, really? And she's like, don't get too excited. Like she's annoyed by him.
Because he doesn't like men. You cannot convince me. Oh, also,
If they didn't confirm the romance, it's probably a thing to put a pin in later, or it's one of those things where the director's like, "Oh yeah, she's totally gay. Didn't you notice?"
look,
Wink.
I am a slut for a good romance subplot. Like, there are very few pieces of media I will willingly consume that don't have romance as at least a major subplot.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. Deca here is
Call
literally
of the
redoing
Netherdeep,
all of Call of the Netherdeep because I'm a slut for a romance subplot.
Which I do feel bad that the audience can't see Haley's reaction in the game, but you know, we have our reasons for why it was stopped. So, or at least stopped being
No, it's
uploaded.
fine.
Fuck you.
Well, I'm
Hasbro.
sure at some point we'll do like a wrap up, Deca and I talking about my character and everything.
Oh,
so it was
absolutely.
really cool. But anywho, bullshit that Doric isn't like, I love Simon, but there's no fucking way. There's no fucking way.
You're
And
telling me
like,
it's like you're telling me a tiefling raised by elves is gonna fall for this human? Like,
half elf. He's half elf, isn't he? You could
he
see
is-
his like pointy
yes.
ears.
He is half elf, yes.
He's half elf. Cause she's like, you humans, and he's like, only half. And I was like, that bitch is a half elf. I love playing half
that was
elves.
truly the most unrealistic part. It was like only half, and you're like, no, you're not claiming that. That's how
you,
that works.
you don't get
First
to
of
claim
all-
that.
First of all, when you say only half human, did you read what they tell you about half elves? It's like, people don't like you. Elves don't like you.
Mhm,
You don't like you.
mhm.
No, I don't think there was ever a moment in that movie where I was like angry about something D&D related until they were like, this tiefling is totally heterosexual. That's when I was like, I draw the line. I draw the
Shout
line
outs-
here.
There's
Shout outs
some,
to Duck, co-host of the show.
It was the relationships in this movie were interesting because you expect, as it like shows the past of Edgin and Holga, you think like they're going to get together, but they don't. And then you're like, you see this obviously woman-loving tiefling hitting on this sorcerer, but then you also see Holga's husband, who is a halfling, played by Bradley Cooper, which was
When we
the
talk
fun-
about
I
Good
did
for
not-
him.
I did not know he was going to cameo in this movie. This scene
no, that was
hit
the
me
biggest
like
shock of my
it hit
life.
me like a left hook, and I was attached to this character.
That shit hit me like truck jam.
He was so small. Like, it's so.
What I love most about Bradley Cooper's scene is that like she got kicked out of her like tribe of
Yeah.
barbarians to be with him, and then reasonably when she goes to prison for being this thing, he moves on with his life. And he moves on with another tall muscle mommy, and I'm like, that's so
He's got a
valid.
type.
This
It's so
this halfling
valid.
found a tribe of barbarians and was like, I belong here. Like,
I'm going to make a checklist.
it's so funny because
I will say
hobbits-
to the movie goers, I did that first. You have to fight me for that. No, I'm just kidding.
I was gonna say hobbits,
Oh, with the
halflings,
family.
Mm-hmm.
they look so weird in movies. Like when you see the actual size comparison, I'm like, I know what he's supposed to be. The dimensions feel wrong for this character.
The problem is, if you make them as short as they're supposed to be, they're going to look like toddlers.
Yeah. It was really funny. It was like a really good moment too. Their talk and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it really sets up what comes back later, where it's this concept of moving on. Mm-hmm. You know, she gets her past settled out, and then later in the movie, when it comes time to choose his wife or Olga with the talisman of resurrection, he's like, you know, she's been here with my daughter. I'm saving her. You know, I have to move on from what I've been trying to get. And
it's almost like D&D is about character growth.
Yes.
It's almost like D&D is like therapy for the people who are playing it.
And it felt that was a really good, it really like established her character more.
Mm-hmm.
Feel like it's sure she's a barbarian. They've shown her as this like no nonsense warrior. Like she destroys some fucking guards earlier in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
In a really cool fight scene.
That was in like the teaser trailer.
Yeah, and it was a really cool fight scene. Most of the fight scenes in this movie were great. Zinx was probably the best against the assassins sent after him. Mm. And I've seen behind the scenes stuff, like he trained to do that. Like that was him doing it, which was awesome.
I liked when they were all like they were all like given the wham bam slam to
I got hyped. That was like this movie. I was like, yeah, like most of this movie, I was like cheering. I was like, this is awesome. But then when it showed like the circle shot of the four of them fighting, I was like, this is cinema.
Like, it was beautiful. It was so good.
It's giving that one terminal montage where all the Kirby's slap. What's his name?
No, I'm like, because I'm thinking it's like, this is D&D combat. The four spots around the enemy are surrounded and they're all wailing on
Did anyone
them.
else find themselves going like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Honestly, if you count if you count 6 seconds, it's pretty spot on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, it leads to a very satisfying death where they trick her into thinking the time stop will work because Simon was like, I got my counter spell off. And then it's full on Hulk and Loki at the end of Avengers 1. Doric just lays out this woman. It's like, I think she's done. She like looks at the party and then goes back to do it again. And then throws her at a building, which is, I'm like, that's awesome. Wow. I love Doric as a character. The magic items, the attunement stuff was great. Like visually, this movie was just fantastic in every way that they had to take a concept from D&D and portray it. I think they nailed it.
I think the problem I'm going to have is this is just the culture in media nowadays, is that, this one was wildly successful, got to do another one. Do another one. No, please come up with something else. I'm begging.
Somebody
come up with another D&D movie, but just come up with something else.
There was a similar thing that was on Twitter about games because, Tears of the Kingdom just came out. Mm-hmm. And somebody pointed out, it's like, what game developers are going to think they've learned from this game? And it's every game needs a crafting system like this. It's like what they should learn. Keep the same team, keep realistic goals, keep an art style. Mm-hmm. Like,
we could talk about Tears of the Kingdom a whole other day, but what I think a good takeaway is like, they made a sequel that feels like a natural progression of the previous game that doesn't suck.
Yeah, because they had the same team.
It also doesn't feel tacked on.
Yeah, they had the original Breath of the Wild team still together. They did it. They added some more stuff, but the only thing that companies are going to learn is they really like this cool crafting system we have. So now all these games are probably going to have this crafting
war
system.
Crimes against the Koroks. I hate that, but that's another podcast for another day.
I'll also say that, like, as someone who is a Majora's Mask hater, I still I still appreciate it as a sequel. Like, it naturally progressed. And I don't think you can get a sequel out. I don't think you get a sequel out of the D&D movie with the way it went.
No, like this. If this was the only movie with this party, it is a satisfying conclusion.
Yeah, exactly.
Every storyline is wrapped up. Forge is in jail because Zinc finds him. The group's kind of together, and then the only real next thing is, somebody, another Red Wizard shows up, but then that just feels like a tacked on, like
a rehash
insinuation.
The only thing I could think of to make it like go bigger is you have to go bigger. Like you started with like a semi-mortal. I'm saying semi-mortal because the Red Wizards are very seldomly actually mortal. But like you start with a semi-mortal entity. You have to go to gods now.
No, I was literally gonna say, it's like the only place they can go up because they fought a dragon. They fought a lich. Now they have to punch God.
If I had to base the escalation, let's say they're planning 3 movies. The escalation is Lich Wizard, Strahd, like a Strahd level character, and then Vecna.
Like a demigod.
And then you end the 3rd movie with like a Vecna fight. Like that's the only escalation that I can see in this setting. Like
you can't just say that word around me without warning me.
I would love to see if they could
say his name.
If they could get this kind of energy in a D&D movie and like kind of make it a little more tense with like a Curse of Strahd style story, I'm in the theater like instantly. It's like
I don't
I'd
like
a Curse of Strahd movie.
I don't like
scary.
horror. I don't like horror movies, but I'd still watch a Curse of Strahd movie.
You'd have
same.
Because I think the thing was they would probably make it so Strahd is just a character in the movie. Like you're not just he's not a force that they're dealing with. He's there. He's probably mocking them. He's probably having his own scenes elsewhere where he's just doing Strahd things.
You're magically playing the piano and drinking blood out of a wine goblin, saying "Oh my god, I meant to send you all the TikTok. Someone made a TikTok."
You'd have to make him the main character. And then the main characters would be the supporting cast, you know?
Someone made a TikTok of Bowser singing the Peaches, but it's Strahd going, what's the lady's name? Like, whatever the love interest name is in Curse of Strahd, it's like, what is her name?
I'm looking for you.
Tiova, something like that.
Let's see.
Tatiana.
Yeah.
There it is.
I was like, it was there, and I kept thinking of like Zarina. I'm like, that's not a name, that's a title. But yeah, I saw that TikTok. It was on the floor.
But yeah, if this was the only movie we got from this group of characters, they did it like perfect. One shot wonder, nailed it.
Got it.
What upsets me is that no matter the critical response to this movie, it again did not make enough money for them to instantly greenlight a sequel. In fact, this movie had a budget of $150 million and only made $200 million. So it probably didn't even get its marketing money back.
Well,
so
they weren't in theaters for very long. They went to digital like that.
Yeah. But the thing is, they're going to look at this and be like, oh, it didn't make enough money, so now we don't know if we're going to instantly make a new movie or not. And I'm like,
they're
just
bullshit.
do it.
They're going to make make another one.
You just do it because everybody loved this movie. Like,
I think that's the other thing I don't like is that, this didn't hit the threshold we wanted. Now we're going to put it in on Netflix. I'm like, go fuck yourself.
Yeah. Not going through like the whole plot, but there were some points in this movie that I really did like. I really liked the gladiator fight scene. The creatures that they brought in from D&D in the live action, especially like the displacer beasts.
Like displacer beasts, yeah.
They looked very good. I liked the Gelatinous Cube. I liked the cartoon characters being one of the teams, which was great to see.
Oh, see, things I didn't get.
That was the only real big like cameo though, because when we were waiting for this movie to come out, there were rumors that the Critical Role cast were going to be cameos in it. There were talks like a bunch of famous DMs would have been like background characters or something like that. And we didn't get any of that. The only thing we really got in terms of cameo is these are the characters from the cartoons, just as another one of the gladiator teams.
I like that better than bringing in
Yes.
like Matt Mercer or Brennan or something like that. I like that much better because that is a reference to something from D&D's past,
Yes.
not its present. And like I love Matt Mercer, Brennan Lee Mulligan. I can name like 6 DMs that off the top of my head that I'd love to see in the movie. But if they're just gonna be like background characters, I'd rather them have a voice, like a voice acting a monster. I wouldn't
Yeah.
want them to be like a background cameo.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just really cool seeing a bunch of these like D&D characters though, or D&D creatures in like a live action form, whether it be Doric's owlbear form or this Displacer Beast. I didn't really like how they did the Displacer Beast ability, because normally it's just like, oh, this thing's kind of like weird and blurry, so you don't know where to hit. The whole like projecting the other version of itself is kind of a weird take on it.
They probably had to do that in case people have like medical issues with that sort of like.
I could see that being valid. I can see that being
so
valid.
Probably for that.
That's definitely an epilepsy friendly version of that.
That was a lawsuit that they didn't want to have to deal with.
Yeah.
We had gelatinous cubes. We had mimics. We had two types of dragons. We had the fat red dragon, and then we actually had a black dragon, which was really cool to see. It's like, oh, we're not doing a very like one-hit dragon thing here. There's multiple dragons in this universe. So
I've played like 6 of them.
And that was really cool, like the flashback sequence to that battle where you see the black dragon like flying over everybody. And then it leads to the questioning scene with the corpse, which I was losing my mind.
Oh my god, that was incredible.
That scene, for some reason, is the funniest scene in this movie for me.
Because it's what happens at a D&D table. Like, that is exactly how Speak with Dead would go every fucking time. Where it's like, does that count as a question? Yep.
No, it's just back into...
No.
And they leave him alive at the end. They don't get the last question out, so this corpse is just sitting there. But, oh god, it
doesn't last that long.
It's just so funny though, because it's like, it's like, is that how we do it? Yes. Also, it's like, all right, dig up another body, and they just keep going through this graveyard because he keeps fucking up his questioning.
And they like, I slipped and fell and died on the like getting out of the bath. They're like, shit.
Yeah, the guy who dies getting out of the bath. They keep finding the wrong body. Like I'm like, this feels so D&D. It's stupid. Like
when I was like cautiously optimistic about this movie when it hadn't come out yet, some of my Australian friends had seen like the early release of it, and they were like, oh yeah, the writers understood the assignment, and that was like the only review I needed. Yeah,
the people who wrote this movie understood how to make a D&D movie feel like a D&D movie while also not being annoyingly on the nose about it. And I think that's what a lot of movies fail at doing. I mean, I love the Mario movie. The Mario movie was great. But there were times where I'm like, okay. Because like I know that they're just trying to make references or be obvious about that reference. And I'm like, I get it. It's a Mario movie. Like,
and I think that's kind of my apprehension with making a sequel right away. I'm kind of glad that they're not immediately doing a sequel or making another one, because I don't know if they can hit that balance again. It's a hard balance to get.
This feels like, I don't want to say it'll be the only one, but unless the same people can do it and keep the same energy, this probably will be the most accurate D&D movie we get for a long time. Or at least
the only accurate D&D movie I get, I'll take it.
Yeah, like if there's an accurate, like this is the perfect blend of comedy, adventure, character development, you know, heart in it. Like this is the perfect D&D movie. Anything else?
Just a full movie in general.
And it was just a great fucking movie. Like if I knew nothing about D&D and I watched this, I'd be like, this was still good. Like that's the thing. Like it's still a good movie.
I'm gonna say something controversial but brave.
Okay. You always do.
Braver than our troops.
Say, let's go. Don't say that. They actually do hard things. I sit and make hot takes on the internet.
Continue.
I would say this is gonna be controversial to everyone who knows me. I liked this more than I like Legends of Vox Machina. And I'm going to say why. One thing that I feel Legend of Vox Machina has done, because it's an animated thing, is they've had to kind of go really gory and really crass.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're like, we're an adult cartoon, and like, sure, whatever. But that sort of takes it away from me, like takes me sort of out of the experience a bit. Whereas with this, like, yeah, it's a D&D movie, but it didn't have to like sit there and be like, we're not just the, like, they didn't have to do something to
alternative.
Like, or not even that. It's just they were able to be like, yep, this is what we are. We're not gonna make it like overly gory or like overly crass or like show Scanlan's fucking ballsack animated. Like, I could have lived my whole life without seeing the bottom of that man's balls.
I will say that is actually, that's the energy Vox Machina had. So it makes sense for that table in particular.
I've literally watched their entire campaign like more times than I care to admit. But if I could only partake in one piece of D&D media for the rest of my life,
I'd rather get the movie.
I'd rather watch this movie than Legends of Vox Machina, because there's not this like neat, like, Legends of Vox Machina is a pioneer because it had to like enter a market that didn't really exist yet, and this movie obviously, like, we saw commercial success for like a D&D related content and mainstream media, so like this movie didn't have to do it as much.
Nope.
But it didn't have, like, I just feel like this is more something where I can just like put on a blankie and have a cozy fun time, versus in Legends of Vox Machina I have to be like, oh right, let me close my eyes for a moment because
this guy gets
eviscerated, needlessly gory.
And that's the thing. This,
like I said, like, and you like, I'm not explaining this to you. I'm explaining this to the audience. It's like that's the table energy they have. I think the D&D movie has a more average, like, this is like when we say your mileage may vary at tables, when tables want like a Matthew Mercer to DM them. It's like this is a more accurate representation of what you will probably get at a table versus like the Legends of Vox Machina. If you're looking for that to be your D&D thing, that was a D&D game turned into a show, not a show based on a D&D game.
Yeah. It's interesting that you bring up that, like, that was the energy at that table, and I found that I've increasingly moved away from consuming Critical Role, and I think it's because 2016, 2017 Haley was really just in it for the Percy Vex romance subplot and just Percy in general, and now that I can find D&D experiences that aren't just like, and then you eviscerate this guy's head open for no reason other than it's badass and cool. So I liked that this movie wasn't overly violent.
This movie
wasn't overly gross.
This movie did have moments though. Like the whole flashback sequence to Thay where everybody becomes like zombified was legitimately horrifying for this setting. It wasn't gory. Like, it was tense as shit.
It was well executed.
Like, it was a very well executed thing.
It effectively communicated the gravity of the, like, if this party fails, like, this is what's gonna happen to this community. Like, I don't know if you all called it when I called it, but I think it used like narrative storytelling where it like goes through like, we're letting you build tension within yourself as we're giving you information and you're applying the implications of it in your head, versus like, and this is not just me like shitting on Legends of Vox Machina. I like it a lot. They tend to be like, oh, let's remind you that this is an adult cartoon by like ripping, like having some guy's eyeball fly out, and then I have to like pause and go puke.
This one, it didn't dawn on me at the time when they showed that flashback, but when I saw her in the Coliseum with all of the city there, I'm like, I see where this is going. Like, this is...
As soon as they showed me that flashback, I was like, oh, that's the game.
Yeah, and I'm like,
there's something afoot.
Nothing in this movie didn't serve a purpose, if that makes sense. Right. Like, everything in this movie had a purpose. Every scene had a purpose in it. Like, everything about this movie, like, just came together at the right time when it needed to. There was nothing that's like, oh, but we're never going to use this thing that we found. It's like, oh,
put a pin in that for later.
Oh, we got this helm of disjunction, which we're going to open this door, and that's going to lead us to the next thing. And it's just like all this other stuff, and it's like everything had a purpose, everything wrapped up smoothly. And I'm like, this is just good storytelling. You know, it's like, oh, we're not questioning what about this. You know, it's no, Safina's dead, Forge is in jail. That's all wrapped up.
Those are the things that
We
happen.
are questioning what about the tiefling not being gay? That's, I think, our big lingering question. But
that's
you're
questioning
brave.
that. That's not the movie questioning that.
That's not the plot. Like, that's not like narrative questions left unanswered. But
You're brave for questioning that, Haley, and I hope we get an answer soon.
And if I'm being honest, like, I know this is like a Wizard of the Coast movie. I, for one, will never subscribe to the fact that tieflings have normal skin tones. Like, that's just wrong and weird.
To be fair, that is my gripe too. I'm like, you could have made her.
If she's a tiefling, why are you white?
It doesn't have to be an ash. It doesn't have to be like an ash colored skin. It doesn't have to be a red skin.
Gosh, AnxietyLasagna, you can't just
make
ask
her purple.
people why they're white.
Make her blue. Like, just
there is a single tiefling variant that is flesh, like human flesh colored.
Boo.
Yes, exactly. Boo,
Boo,
hiss, whatever.
Tomato.
They had to pull the rare example because they were too cowardly to put a color.
No, for sure. Or maybe the person didn't want to do a lot of makeup. We don't know.
Yeah,
That's valid.
Sophia Loomis strikes me as a person who wouldn't want to sit in makeup for several hours just
like putting the prosthetics on as is probably took a while.
Yeah. Just little things too, like the costumes in this movie were all superb. The whole set, any of the practical settings, like the practical sets were great. Like the Underdark, most of that stuff they're on is practical, which was really cool. And just like the art direction of this movie blew me away.
I love when they're in the Underdark and Zank is sitting there describing to them how they're going to cross the bridge, and then Simon just shifts his
he steps on the stone and
then
breaks
collapses. I was like, that is the most D&D shit.
Correct.
It's like, then you will take one step to the right. It's like, or you're just, I was like, I wasn't expecting it to be the sorcerer. Usually that's like a barbarian or a rogue or a bard thing to do.
High intelligence, low charisma. No, he's wild magic sorcerer, so charisma.
Yeah,
low
high
intelligence.
charisma, low intelligence. I was like, I play a wild magic sorcerer. She's the most charismatic bitch around. Does not know her ABCs.
Specifically low wisdom, so no passive perception.
It's also
my life currently.
Just thinking about like the characters again, like even Forge had a great like establishing character moment. You keep seeing these flashback things of him where it's like, oh, we're about to be caught, and he takes the thing and, you know, I'm gonna take care of your daughter and all that, and then you get to him and it's like, oh, I'm a scumbag, and I'm telling you that I'm a scumbag. So
I've been telling you this whole time. You just weren't listening.
I will say I did enjoy that we have a rogue that's not like an edgelord rogue, like your Thieves Guild rogue.
He's a peacock rogue.
He's a rogue in the classic sense of like a rogue, like a roguish person versus the Batman rogue.
I love the nobleman rogue archetype. It's my favorite.
It was such a good like betrayal of what you can do with characters. Like, yeah, people are like, oh, rogue, I have to be sneaky, I have to steal stuff, and it's like, or you could just be flamboyant and steal the kingdom. Like,
or you could just be flamboyant and a dickhead.
He was flamboyant and he literally stole the city. Like,
you stole a child.
He stole the child. All these characters were memorable. Even, it was so funny that it came back to Jonathan at the end too, where he tried to use him to escape, but they had bricked in the window that had been broken on the previous attempt. And I'm like, this bird just can't catch a break. Like,
I love Jonathan. I want merch of Jonathan.
For some reason,
it's coming, I'm sure.
For some reason, the woman screaming Jonathan made me laugh both times. Jonathan! Like,
me in the theater also screaming Jonathan.
I want to know who did the like practical effects.
I have not. Oh, I didn't look for that. While you're looking that up, Sharky, I just want to give a moment to talk about how I liked the magic system that they used in there. Like, they didn't go out of their way to be like, well, I'm casting this spell that does whatever. they just did shit, and like you could see sometimes that there was like a verbal and somatic thing. You saw
Sometimes there was
concentration
material.
when probably like major image or something with the fake bard. The wild magic was really cool. I loved being able to just have moments of being like, wait a minute, I know that spell, and getting really excited about it, like the prestidigitation where it was like, I can make the smell of fresh cut grass, which I'm choosing to believe is a Critical Role reference.
It is.
I think it's one of the cheekier ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I can make the smell of fresh cut grass, like that's prestidigitation. Like towards the end, the Lich bitch used Finger of Death. Just there were moments where I was like, I know that smell. I've used that smell. And that was fun.
I'm looking at it here. Justice Smith commented that he worked with the choreographer to create unique gestures for each spell, many of it actually incorporating sign language into the gestures.
Yep.
That's really cool. I like the I like watching the movie and then like just doing the soy jack point the whole time.
Yeah, that was I went to see it with friends of mine, like my like local friends, and just every time something happened that we knew, I would like look at Kev and just be like, look at Kev, it's the thing. Like,
it's the thing.
But
we had a good crowd in my theater where people were like making jokes and aside, so it felt like you're at a D&D table, because like a tense moment would be happening, then someone would crack a joke and we're all laughing. We're like, this is a D&D table. We're experiencing a D&D table together. Like the movie is the game that we're playing, and then we're the chuckle fucks around the table, like sneaking almonds and being jackasses.
So I'm looking at this right here. The film's influences specifically that he based it off of is Princess Bride, Monty Python and the Holy Grail,
Frankie
Lord
Crash.
of the Rings. Oh, did I?
I think we lost Sharky.
I think we lost Sharky. There he is.
Yeah, I could hear you guys. I could hear you guys. So it was weird because I apparently wasn't broadcasting, but you guys were.
Nope.
So that was a very one-sided disconnect.
This is such a scuffed episode. Should we do an
it.
outro?
Yeah, I'm starting to disconnect. So.
Yeah, podcast. Do.
Oh yeah, look at that.
This is exactly how this podcast. Yeah.
Are you downloading something?
No, I'm not downloading something. I just had randomly 14 disconnects today for no reason. So
I see.
That's fun. So yeah, we're probably going to call this early. So
yeah, we'll just make the ending really hella cursed and scuffed.
We have like 3 seconds of Sharky. Quick outro.
The thing is, like, everything recorded is still fine for me. Like the thing is, like, I wasn't broadcasting to you guys, but you were broadcasting still to me, so I was recording everything you were saying. So
I love that. Oh my god!
That's
please
even
keep
funnier.
that in.
But yeah,
keep it in.
Apparently I am
funny.
having connection problems, so I'm probably gonna have to call this one short.
Toodaloo.
Not that short. I think this is fully an hour.
We're about on an hour, yeah. So yeah, that's our thoughts on the D&D movie. I mean, we probably could talk about it a lot more, but I really love this movie.
Connectivity issues. And we're gonna call this before Sharky's computer blows up.
So yeah. Anybody else have any final thoughts?
Go watch it if you haven't yet.
Yes.
$20 is probably much cheaper than it is at the movies.
Yes, this was a fantastic movie, and if you don't know D&D and you just want a good fantasy movie, this is a great fucking fantasy movie.
Yeah.
I agree with the inspirations, which I was reading off. Princess Bride, Monty Python, and the Holy Grail. It feels like it's a combo of those. Like, it really does. It feels like it has the best parts of a bunch of different fantasy movies in it. And it's written
Which is truly how D&D is like done in general. It's like it's a reference of these things.
It feels like an actual movie made with care and love, which is very rare these days, especially when with an official property like this. So a very rare treat. I'm glad we got it.
My final thought is one of the best things about this movie was the writing. So I want to say that we support the writer's strike.
Yes.
Hey, the writers.
Hey, your writers.
And I think I mentioned that earlier too, just the writing. It wasn't Marvel comedy with like Marvel quips. The quips actually like felt in place instead of just being like tacked on to something. I don't know what.
The show.
Yeah, we're going to end the show.
I got
So.
on the show.
All right, guys.
We'll do a part 2 later, I guess.
I guess we'll
I'm
do.
not promising you that.
No promises.
Okay,
but...
bye.
All right, guys. We'll see you all later. Take care, everybody.
Bye.